Rebound Stronger Podcast episode 21.
Life is full of ups and downs. It's easy when we are doing great. However, how we deal with the lows determines whether we are going to stay down for a long time or recover fast and become better. There is a saying, the hardest still goes into the hottest furnace. I do believe that we can always overcome adversities. These struggles can come from challenging childhood, financial issues, relations or marital problems, disabilities, and many other forms. I decided that I need to start reaching out to people who have overcome these adversities and learn from them how they use these difficulties as a stepping stone, how these setbacks have changed their life for the better. I record my conversation with them so that you can also learn from this amazing individual. Take note and take massive actions to make our life better. This is Rebound Stronger Podcast with Fauzi. Hi Rebound Stronger listeners, this is Fauzi. I'm so excited today. I have my first guest from Australia. I got to know her through Lewis House School of Greatness 4.0. And also I had a chat with a common friend, Delane Cooper, last week. And she suggested that I should connect with this amazing woman. So let me introduce you, Carole Pilling.
That's it. Hi.
Yeah, Carole, thank you for joining me in the Rebound Stronger podcast.
No problem at all.
Let's start with the three things you're grateful for at the moment.
I guess the three things I'm grateful for are having a second chance at life. So we'll get into why I'm on the podcast, but yeah, having a second chance at life is definitely one that I'm massively grateful for. The fact that I'm able to walk again, and I'm going to make a full recovery from my accident that I had, and just grateful that I can get out and about and do things like I was always very active before, and just the ability to go outside and look at the sky and, smell the air, just go for a walk is so, such a big part of what's happened to me, and being able to do that, and spending time with family has just been amazing. So those are probably the three top things I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I love that you are grateful for sometimes what we consider as a small things like breathing, looking at the sky, fresh air. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, so I used to live in the UK. I grew up over there. I then decided to move to Australia as part of work. So I worked in the police over in the UK, and they did a worldwide recruitment. So I decided to jump ship and try out living in another country, and absolutely loved it over here, and have been doing that work now for about 7.5 years. And, I've settled in Australia now, and my family still live in the UK. So I go back I try and go back once a year to see them. I have 3 nephews, 8, 5 and 4. So they're still quite young, but I don't want to miss sort of seeing them grow up. So I try and get back at least once a year to spend time with my family.
Let's go back to the date, the 20th of May 2015. What happened?
So it was one of my trips back to the UK, and I was going for 2 reasons. One, to see family, and also to go to one of my best friend's weddings. So it was a week before, I'd only been there a week, but it was a few days before the wedding. And on the Thursday, we were due to have a rehearsal that evening. In the morning, Dad and I decided to go out and have a little bonding session. So we decided to go to a park, and we were just going to have a walk round. And I like photography, so I was going to take some photos and just spend a bit of time together.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't actually make it to the park. We had a big car accident. So what happened was we came to this junction where my dad should have turned left. He went straight on, and a big 4-wheel drive hit my side of the car. It was about 60 miles an hour, so about 100 k's an hour. And luckily it hit dead on the side impact bar. So all the airbags went off, everything worked in the car. It was a Toyota Avensis. Everyone keeps asking me what car it was because obviously I've done so well and survived from that vehicle. I was told afterwards if it had hit maybe an inch to the left, it would have killed me. So I'm very, very lucky. Our car spun and the back end of it hit into a tree on a verge, and the other car spun, hit the bank or verge, and then rolled onto its roof. The other people in the car were all fine. As I say, I don't remember any of the accident until I spoke to the fire brigade afterwards, and I just remember during the accident that I must have come to at some stage, and I remember holding my dad's hand and looking at him and saying, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yes." And Lee looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Don't worry, we're going to be fine." And that's all I remember. And then the next part I remember is being in hospital. I don't remember the journey there. Apparently there was quite a lot of fire brigade. They had to cut the roof off the car to get me out because I was very, very crushed. And the air ambulance was there, but fortunately for me, I wasn't that severe that I needed to go in a helicopter. I remember kind of being on a bed next to my dad in the hospital, and my brother and my mother at the end of the bed, and I stick my thumb up and say to my brother, "Take a photo." So I must have been high on drugs. But every point since that, I guess I then decided to keep a journal and just to see how my recovery was going.
Did you keep a journal before that?
I did, kind of on and off, but it wasn't consistent. So I had plenty of time being in hospital, so I started just making little notes and how I was feeling each day, and if I was in pain and whether I felt better or worse. And then for me, I kind of could see how I was getting better, if I was getting better, if I had a setback, things like that, and putting people, just all sorts of things, people that came to visit. I also found a little while after the accident that there were lots of things that I just didn't remember. So a friend of mine came to the hospital, and she was wearing a beautiful cardigan. And I said to her, "Oh, that's so beautiful. Where did you get it from?" And she told me about it. And literally a month later, she came to visit me at home, and she was wearing the same cardigan. And I said exactly the same thing. And she just laughed and said, "You asked me that in the hospital." So I said, "I'm really sorry, I don't remember." But I spent 2 weeks in Brighton and Sussex Hospital, and the staff there were just amazing. Really looked after me, cared for me. Again, my partner flew over from the UK from Australia and came to the UK and spent time with me in the hospital. But even when he turned up, I looked at him and said, "What are you doing here? You don't need to be here." I had no idea of the severity of my injuries.
Well, I guess your family is concerned because of something. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit more, how serious was your injury?
Yeah, so when I got to hospital, I think I spent 2 days. I remember being in a room that was very grey, and I was the only person in there. I had nurses looking after me, so I guess it was pretty serious. I don't know if it was intensive care, but it might have been. I couldn't see anything outside. I just remember speaking to this nurse, and then I was moved up to a ward, I think maybe a couple of days later. My injuries, basically I headbutted my dad in the accident, so I had a huge lump on my head, so I had concussion. At the top of my spine, I subluxed C1 and C2. I broke my left scapula. I punctured my left lung, so that was completely full of blood and had to be drained. And even now, when I get up in the morning and I have a deep breath, my left side of my lung still rattles a little bit. So it's obviously still has a tiny bit of fluid in there, and we're 14 months later. So I broke ribs 2 through to 8, and most of those were in 2 places. I had 6 fractures in my pelvis, and at the base of my spine, the little spinal processes either side, I snapped off 2 of those and chipped another one. So I think that covers everything.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I obviously in hospital, I was on various medications, morphine, I had, you know, tablets to take. I was hooked up to various. I had 2 drips in each, you know, in each arm. So yeah, I kind of.
So all this thing going on with you in the hospital, right? Did you feel sorry? Did you regret anything? What did you feel at the time?
I think initially, because I didn't really know what was going on, I just assumed that I would get out of bed and get up and walk. And it wasn't until probably a few days after I'd been in hospital that they said, you know, my pelvis was broken and they were going to have to do surgery. But even then, I didn't seem to worry too much about it. I wasn't that concerned. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of needles, so the worst thing for me was having needles, and that was the biggest fear I had. So I'm better with needles now, but I still don't like them. I don't know anybody who does like them. So, but after a week, I went and had surgery. So what they did was they inserted a metal rod with big screws into the front of my pelvis to hold everything together. So mm-hmm. Then the bones could knit back together and be more stable. But because of that, they said that I wasn't allowed to put any weight through my legs for 3 months. So I guess being told that, I was upset and obviously a little bit frustrated initially, but you know, there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. This was the situation, and I just had to kind of say, okay, you know, hopefully I'll get through this all. And but all from the very start of everything, they were very positive about my recovery. I believe, you know, when I went into hospital, they did a thorough scan of everything, so my brain all the way down to my feet, just to make sure everything was okay. And you know, thank God I wasn't paralyzed. They say most people in those type of car accidents, 1, don't survive, and 2, if they do survive, they're often paralyzed. So because where the pelvis is crushed, the 2 nerves that run down the base of your spine can get severed, or you end up squashing them so they get damaged. So you get floppy leg syndrome, so you can still feel your legs, but you can't actually move them. So for me, you know, that I was extremely lucky to survive and not be paralyzed. So they always told me, you know, you will make a full recovery, but it's going to take some time. And I think knowing that, I had an end goal, and you know, I knew that I was going to get better. So it was a case of looking forward and starting my recovery.
What specifically you do to keep your mind always positive especially during the initial time of recovery?
Yeah, I had my parents. Well, my dad obviously was in the accident as well, so he broke a couple of ribs. Obviously had a head injury as well, and also he took the top off one of his kidneys. So, you know, not great, but he was in a much better state than I was. So he was at home. He came to visit quite a lot, but not as often as my mum. My mum would come down every day. She would actually get the bus from their house, which took about an hour and 40 minutes. But it was her time to kind of be on her own and think about what had happened, and just kind of shut everything else out. So I think that was her sort of therapy, coming down to the hospital. And then we would just she would sit and talk to me, and my partner was there from Australia, so he flew over, and he was staying in a hotel not too far away, so he would come and visit every day. So, and then I would have a stream of friends and family. So it was all very, very supportive network that I had. As I said, I started keeping a journal. I was listening to podcasts, so I listened to Lewis Howes anyway. So I was catching up on a lot of podcasts that I'd missed. But, you know, I was very forgetful with things. So, you know, just sort of day to day, obviously the nurses were coming in, the consultants would come around in the morning and sort of talk to you about what was happening and where you're at, and talk to me about pain levels. And I had breakfast, lunch and dinner, so it was kind of waiting for the food to come along. throughout everything, I didn't lose my appetite. So I have a very big appetite. I love my food. Also my partner the hospital food wasn't that great. So he would often bring in extra food from outside. And I actually celebrated my birthday in hospital. So unfortunately, you know, I missed the wedding as well, but they did give me a mention at the wedding, because it was actually that weekend that the wedding was going to happen. So unfortunately, I missed my friend's wedding, but I'm still here, so that's the main thing.
Fast forward now, 14 months after the accidents, right? I'm sure you still there's some recovery you're doing. So tell us about maybe what are the stage you are in now.
Okay. So after I spent 3 weeks in hospital, then I went back to my parents' house and I spent 4 months there, and they were literally just my carers 24/7. So I obviously couldn't stand. So my mother would help me wash, to dress, go to the toilet. Once a week, she would take me out of the house and we would go to the local leisure centre swimming pool, where I used the disabled shower there, and it was the best thing ever. That's another thing I'm grateful for, you know, having a hot shower. Not being able to shower properly for 2 or 3 weeks was just the best feeling. The first time I went in the shower was at the hospital, and one of the nurses went out to get me some towels, and she came back and I was in floods of tears, and she said, "Oh my goodness, what's the matter with you?" And I said, "I'm so excited to be having a shower." I said, "These are happy tears. I'm just really looking forward to it." So, you know, little things like that, little outings out of the house. So all of this sort of thing was part of recovery. I was having hydrotherapy in the UK, so I went to a local rehabilitation centre called it was in Groombridge, and I would go in the pool, and the pool was very warm, but I'd have to be put into a hoist and then lowered into the water, and because I couldn't stand, obviously they put floats around my body, and then I would do certain exercises, and I looked forward to that each week, so that sort of kept me moving forward. And then when I was going to be able to stand, it actually moved into the rehabilitation centre and spent 3 weeks there learning to walk again. So I started standing for the first time, which was very, very strange, because I was so unbalanced and very sort of wobbly, and I thought maybe I would just stand up and start walking, but would be very slow. So it was a different concept of what it was actually like and what I thought it was like. So I got quite emotional, because I didn't realise it was going to be that difficult. And then, you know, it was moving from standing to walking with a Zimmer frame, then walking with crutches, and then walking with walking sticks, and then down to one walking stick. So I set myself little goals of what to achieve to help me through that process of recovery. And then, of course, it was time to come back to Australia. So I contacted my insurance. Luckily, I always have travel insurance, so they were fantastic throughout. They actually arranged for my partner to fly back over from Australia, because he had to come back. So he flew back over to escort me back to Australia. Mm-hmm. And under the circumstances, it wasn't great, but we ended up flying back first class Emirates on the thanks to the insurance company. So that was amazing. But yeah, we had when we came back, then it was also obviously it was quite difficult for me, because I'd left that sort of nice, cozy environment, being with my parents. I had a routine, so it was kind of, then I had to get into a routine back in Australia.
Yep.
And again, you know, at that time my partner wasn't working. Besides my car accident, my partner actually had to close his business after 9 years, and his mother also passed away from lung cancer. So 2015 was a very bad year for us. So we just wanted to kind of look forward to 2016 and put all that behind us and just keep moving forward. So so when I came back, there was more, I needed to have surgery. So there was more rehabilitation. I had to get the rod removed from my pelvis because that wasn't going to stay in permanently. So that came out in February. And then it was a little backstep a bit because I then had to stay on crutches for 6 weeks, which was quite frustrating because I'd obviously managed to walk again. I was using one stick, and then it was a little bit of a backstep to using both crutches. But my surgeon was very pleased with how I was recovering. So he said, look, if you stick to the 6 weeks, after 6 weeks, we can get rid of the crutches. If you don't use them all the time, then we'll have to extend it to 12 weeks. So for me, I was quite determined that I only wanted the crutches for 6 weeks. So I made sure that I used them every day and didn't do too much. And it was just generally resting and trying to let my body repair. Although on the outside, you wouldn't have, even when I had the accident, looking at me, I had a few scrapes and cuts to my face where the glass had shattered. But apart from that, you wouldn't have known any internal injuries at all. And even now, when I see people, they look at me and sort of say, wow, you look so well, you know. And because physically, from the outside, I look normal. Obviously, I still have a few issues going on inside. But over the days and the weeks and the months, you know, my bones have healed. I'm getting physically stronger. I was doing maybe 4 to 5 training sessions a week, and I was eating fairly healthily before the accident. So I believe, and also I've been told that because I was healthy a lot of the time before the accident, this has helped massively with my recovery. So that's been a huge bonus for me, and I've recovered a lot quicker than if I would be on eating a bad diet and not doing any exercise. So I'm really glad that I have that kind of way of life, I guess, that I want to be healthy and I want to keep fit and train hard. And
so you describe about your physical recovery during our discussion yesterday. Also, you mentioned about emotionally also your recovery.
So obviously the main concern was all the physical stuff. You know, there were so many breaks, and so all of that needed to repair. So kind of everybody was focused on, right, we need to make sure we do this, we need to make sure we do that to get all this working properly. And now that that's all come almost good, almost getting there, then the sort of the emotional side of things and the mental side of things sort of reared up. So I got a few flashbacks from the accident. I've been having bad dreams, not necessarily about the accident, but obviously anxiety dreams. So I decided that I would go and see somebody and go and seek counselling, go and see a psychologist. And you know, I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I might try it. If it does nothing, I've lost nothing. If it helps, then I've gained something. So I've had 6 sessions with her, and I have another 4. So I find it really, really helpful. And she's given me some sort of things to work on at home, and you know, how to deal with a situation if I feel.
If you can share a bit, what is her advice, what you are doing?
So, for example, if I have a bad dream, she said to me, you know, when I go to bed, do I actually think I'm going to have a nice dream tonight? And I said, well, I don't think that. I just, you know, go to sleep. She said, well, maybe if you sort of get into that way of thinking, you know, I'm going to have a nice restful sleep and relaxing, and I also do meditation. So I do meditation at night when I go to bed, and that just kind of calms me down. Not that I'm neurotic when I go to bed, but it just kind of makes me feel at ease a little bit more. I take magnesium powder at night. That puts me in that sort of restful state for bed. And she said, you know, if they'll have a situation, if I'm in a car with somebody, and obviously I'm still a bit nervous in vehicles, so if something happens and I think, you know, oh, that was a bit close, instead of sort of getting really uncomfortable with the situation, she said, just stop, think about the situation. You haven't been hit by this car. Yes, it was a near miss, and then what you need to do is just maybe deep breathe, you know, don't get too sort of caught up on the moment, and just kind of move on from it. You know, the disaster didn't happen, so you don't need to worry about that. Take some deep breaths. Everything's okay, and let's move on with whatever we were doing. So it's kind of, you find the situation, and then you deal with the thoughts that you're having and what you're feeling. It's those three things. So with some counsellors, they will just sit and listen to you, and then they might give you a little bit of advice. But with her, I find that it's a little bit more interactive, which I prefer. And she gives me tasks to work on and things like that. So I find that really helps. So I can actually deal with a situation a lot easier than I normally would. So, you know, if anybody else has been through a similar situation or finds that they can't deal with certain things, I would definitely recommend counselling. You know, you don't have to tell people about it, just take yourself off. But I also believe that, you know, not everyone is right for you. So even if you don't find someone that you're really compatible with the first time, I would shop around a little bit, or maybe, you know, ask people in the industry, say you're looking for a particular type of counselling, and then get some recommendations. But that's definitely helped me. So that's been really good.
Thanks, Carole, for sharing that. So looking back, right, although we don't wish these things to happen to us, but looking back, what's the good thing that you're grateful that through this experience?
I'd probably say go out, you know, people need to go out and live their lives. Don't get caught up in the day-to-day grind, you know, try and get outdoors, do things. I mean, you know, I was given a second chance at life, and it's interesting. My parents and I took a trip to America, and we went on a road trip, and we were going to go to a place called Monument Valley, but it was a little bit too far, and we decided, no, we're not going to go there. We'll do some other national parks instead, which was still very beautiful, but it was somewhere I really wanted to go to, but we didn't make it. And I thought, well, I could have died in that accident, you know, and I didn't get to see something that I really wanted to see. So I'm meeting up with them in October this year, and we're going to Monument Valley. I said, we're doing it this year. I missed out on it last year, so we're going. So I just, you know, I'm just so grateful that I'm still here and I can still enjoy life. And I guess it's given me a new sort of passion to do things and to push my limits. Obviously, I'm still physically, I'm not 100%, but my bucket list is getting longer and longer. And when I'm physically able to and mentally able to, and I'm all good again, there's just going to be no stopping me. So there's, you know, I've told my partner, I said, right, we're going to plan a trip every year. I said, it gives us a whole year to plan the trip, to save the money for the trip, and we can go away for 3 or 4 weeks and just have an amazing time, create some amazing memories together. You know, a lot of people will spend their entire life saving, looking forward to their retirement, and not actually enjoying life on a day-to-day basis. And then when they get there, it may not be what they want it to be, you know. Even for me, going out every day and walking my dog, because obviously I wasn't able to do that before, is just a massive achievement. I go out, I look at the sky, I look at all the nature around me, you know, and I just enjoy my time with my dog. And I do honestly believe that she has been very therapeutic as well. You know, she kind of knows that there's been something wrong with me, and she'll sit with me, and we spend pretty much all day together because I'm still off work. So I don't know how she's going to cope when I go back to work, but we'll see.
Before we move on, maybe you can show us some pictures from your accidents and also your bracelet.
Oh, sure, yes. So this is probably not the worst picture of the car, but you can kind of see that I was in amongst that somewhere. So yeah, it was pretty bad, and a lot of people were sort of saying, you know, do I actually want to have a look at the car? And of course I did. I guess from also having a police background, I wanted to know why the accident happened, you know, what were the circumstances of it. I'll show you the picture as well. of my dad and I when we first got to hospital, and I had my thumb up. So that's the photo. So that was the
Oh,
I know. Just look at my dad's face. It just it just looks so bad. But yeah, so I had that photo taken. I probably shouldn't have done, but I guess when you're high on medication, you don't really know what's going on around you. And I'll show you the picture of my metal rod. So the actual metal rod was I'd say it was about 5 inches long, and the screws were about maybe 2.5, 3 inches. They were, something that you get at a hardware store. They were huge. So that was interesting, having that inside me. I could feel it in there. It wasn't particularly pleasant, but it was a necessary part of my recovery. So this is the picture of the rod inside my pelvis.
oh.
So it's not particularly pretty, but it did the job. So that was interesting, and it's great that our mutual friend Delane, she's actually offered, as you know, she's a jewelry designer, and she's actually offered to take my rod and my screws and turn it into a piece of jewelry for me, which I was so touched that she did that, or she wants to do that. That's just amazing.
Quick question: when that rod is taken away, does it leave a hole in your pelvis, or? Yeah,
so what they had to do was obviously drill some holes through parts of my pelvis, through the bone, so they could put the screws in, and then the rod actually sat on top of the screw, or in a little cup like that, and then the nut on top would screw down and hold it in place. So it still had a little bit of movement, but yeah, it wasn't particularly pleasant at all. But now I wanted to keep the rod and the screws as a reminder. So I have those just tucked in a drawer at the moment. But I also had this bracelet made. So it's 3 bits of silver, and I wanted to have a word, and I initially I wasn't sure what word to have. I thought, should I have survivor? Should I have limitless? And then I actually watched the film Unbroken, the one that Angelina Jolie directed, about the war camp and the guy that survived through that.
Yeah.
And there was one saying in there, he says, if you can take it, you can make it. So that was quite good. So I kind of took that, and if I can take the pain and I can take the time out and I can recover, I can make it. I can get through it. So I decided to use the title of the film. So I had Unbroken put on this bead. The second bead was the date of my accident, so the 28th of May 2015.
Yep.
The bottom one is the coordinates of where the accident happened. So if I wear it every single day. If I ever have a bad time, or I think of, I might have a bit of pain, I look down at that and I think, well, nothing could be as bad as it was. So, cheer up, get on with life. Don't feel sorry for yourself. There's often people in worse situations than you are. So, be grateful for what you have. So I have that as a constant reminder. And also from the accident, unfortunately, I don't do well with anaesthetic. So I actually got this thing called serotonin syndrome. So because I had a concoction of pain medication, and then I had the anaesthetic, and because I was sick after the anaesthetic, they gave me anti-sickness drugs. The whole combination, basically, I had a build-up of serotonin in my body. So when I came back from the hospital the day after I had my rod removed, I actually, my jaw started to shake, and my teeth were kind of chattering, and I was chewing all the inside of my gums. So it was very, very painful. And we ended up back in the emergency department that night. So again, I had a lot of medication to calm me down and to release the sort of tension in my muscles. And it transpires that it can be fatal. So luckily, I got it all sorted there and then. But now, because of that, I have to wear a medical alert bracelet. So I have this now for the rest of my life. And then on the back, it says all the different allergies, so basically the anesthetic type drugs. So if I'm ever in another situation where I'm unconscious and I need medical attention, they know at least not to give me those drugs. So I have my 2 bracelets that I wear every day, and yeah, they don't really leave my wrists.
That looks good though.
Thanks.
Habits you believe it helps you?
I think my main 2 habits are meditation and journaling. So I try and meditate every morning. Obviously, by having the accident and being off work, I don't have any routine during my day. So I try and make a list of things that I'm going to get done each day. And it could be as simple as taking the dog for a walk, making a cup of tea, writing in my journal, doing some meditation, doing some exercise, doing my physio. Yeah. And I just find that if I don't write things down, I don't get things done, and I come to the end of the day and I think, well, what have I actually done today? You know, I may have been on Facebook, I may have posted an Instagram post, you know, something minor. So I feel that I need to have those lists to keep me active during the day. So I try and meditate every morning, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I have two different meditations. One I use Headspace, which is very, very good. And it's very simple and easy to follow, and that's more of a guided one. And then I use Deepak Chopra and Oprah. I have bought some of those sessions, and also I like the free 21-day one, so I tend to tune in with those as well. So I find that's really good. And then at night time I try and have 25 minutes just even if it's music in the background, just helps calm me down. So I find those 2 things are very, very helpful with recovery and just moving forward on a day-to-day basis.
What are you currently working on?
Okay, I have a few projects. So I'm still full-time police work. I will need to go back to work probably in the next couple of months. So again, they'll do an integration, a return to work program. So I'll ease back into the situation. I've always had a love of photography. So I have a photography business on the side. I do travel photography, and I also do weddings. So my main passion is the travel photography. So every time I get to go away somewhere, I always have my camera in hand. And I try and visit somewhere new every year, whether it's a new town, a new city, a new country, just to get out and see a bit more of the world. So I take my photography and...
Where do you post your pictures?
I have a Facebook page, so Carole Pilling Photography. And I also have a website as well, carolepillingphotography.com.au. So I have both of those. And I'm on Instagram as well. So my Instagram is Carole P 1977. So I have my photography side of things, and then because of my accident, when I came back to Australia, it was coming into summer, and I wanted to go to the beach so I could continue my hydrotherapy. I mean, what's better than going to the Indian Ocean where it's beautiful turquoise sea? I'm outdoors and I'm doing my physiotherapy and my hydrotherapy. So I thought, well, I need to get a bikini. I'd put on some weight since my accident because I'd obviously been inactive. So that was a little bit hard for me as well. I've actually put on 6 kilos. Everybody I've seen said, oh, well, it doesn't matter, you know. And for me, initially, I was kind of, well, you know, I've got an extra 6 kilos I'm carrying. But again, I'm just embracing my new body, and I know that at some point I'll get back to training again, and I'll lose a few kilos. I'm not going to worry about it, you know. As I say, I'm still here. You know, it's not the end of the world if I've put on a little bit of weight, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I wanted to find a swimwear outfit that was going to be comfortable and that I felt okay in. And I couldn't find anything for about a month, so I spent a lot of time looking for one. And then I decided, well, you know, I love my photography and I love swimwear, and coming into the summer, why don't I try and combine the two? So I've actually been working on a swimwear collection. And it's moving forward slowly, which is good. And I'm not gonna be hustling and grinding and doing, such hard work that I actually put my health to one side. So that for me at the moment is the most important thing. And I want to spend time with my friends and my family while I'm recovering. So as long as I keep moving, doing something each day, each week, then I know I'm moving forward slowly. So I've dealt with a graphic designer. We've got the designs all done up. We've got the specifications ready for samples to be made. And then when the samples will be made, I can test them out and get the website up and running, and then start selling the product. So yeah, so I've got a new business kind of on the go, which is great, and I'm really excited, and I've got massive goals and dreams for it. So I'm just going to keep chipping away at it and keep going, and hopefully one day, I'll have an amazing swimwear business.
Well, we are excited for you also, Carole.
Thank you. So watch this space.
Watch this space, yeah. If you have books to recommend, like books which has helped you or impacted your life.
Yeah, well, just on the book thing, I would probably say the movie Unbroken. That was definitely a turning point, I think, for me, just because seeing this one person, it's based on a true story. So seeing this one person going through so much, and he still continued to go forward and still pushed himself. So I found that really, really helpful. And the other book that I would definitely recommend is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Just because he had been through a similar thing that I went through. He had a bad
car accident also.
But he actually died for about 4 minutes. So, and then on the back of that, he's written this book, and he has, each morning he has a little routine. So I've kind of used that, and that's helped me to move forward with my injuries and my recovery. So definitely that book as well.
Thanks for sharing that. So how can people reach you, Carole?
You can find me on Facebook. I have just a normal friend account, so Carole Pilling. I've got my photography page on there. I have my swimwear page. So my business is going to be called Powder Line. So I have that's on Facebook, and also I'm Powder Line Swimwear on Instagram. And again, I've literally just set the account up. So moving slowly forward. But if you want to check out my photography, I'm always looking for comments and what people like to see. So if anyone wants to put anything on there, it'd be greatly appreciated.
What's your definitions of courage?
My definition of courage is for me personally, was being able to keep holding my head high through, and being strong for my family, and staying positive, and being determined, and persistent with my recovery. Obviously my dad was part of the accident, and he actually caused the accident. So for him, it's been very tough for him to see me go through, all this pain and suffering, knowing that he's caused it. So I think for me, trying to stay strong while I was going through that. So even if I had really bad days and I was in a lot of pain, I'd still try and put on a brave face for my dad, because I didn't want him to see me upset or in pain, because then it would upset him. And, and I don't blame him for the accident. It's one of those things that's happened. I'm going to make a full recovery. So, I want him to kind of move on for that. But I know, he still punishes himself now, which is terrible for me. So I'm hoping that when I see them in October, that things will be much better. But I came up with a quote as well that for me, and every day is a step closer to recovery. So if anybody else is going through the same thing, just know that whatever you're going through, the next day will be different. It may be better, it may be slightly worse, but you're still moving forward and you can still recover. So every day is a step closer to recovery.
Thanks, Carole, for sharing that. And thank you for your time and sharing your story, how you recover, and also sharing that setting small goals throughout the recoveries, not blaming the situations, and even selflessly trying to be brave, or you don't blame people, you don't blame the situation. Even you think about how I can make my father's
less maybe less stressful or less
Yeah.
feel guilty. So right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carole, for sharing that.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Hey, if you like what we are creating with this podcast, make sure you join our Rebound Stronger Facebook group. This is the group where you can interact with like-minded people who wants to take their life to the next level, people who wants to turn their low points into breakthroughs. And as a bonus, the past podcast guests have also joined the group. So check it out and go to reboundstronger.com/group. Or you can also search the group in the Facebook. Just use the keyword Rebound Strongers. And we have big plans for you and the members. So see you inside.